Are the OPPO Enco Air 5 Pro and the Oneplus Nord Buds 4 Pro actually the same thing? Hello friends, welcome back to CCC. And to be honest, I'm not quite ready to answer that million-dollar question today because the Oneplus Nord Buds 4 Pro I asked a friend to bring over hasn't arrived yet. So instead of waiting, we're going to dive headfirst into a review of this, the trickled-down version of the legendary OPPO Enco Free 4. If you followed my channel, you know that I have recommended the Free 4 to basically everyone, and now the Air 5 Pro is positioned as the entry-level noise cancellation alternative. On the spec sheet, they've trimmed the fat. They cut the head tracking feature from the Free series, gave us a 3-mic setup per side, and delivered a frankly terrifying 30 and 57 hours battery life. They even keep the touch slide volume control. I have to say, on paper, OPPO's sincerity here is massive. So today, we're going to see if it can continue the myth of the Free 4 and remain the undisputed king of the $50 bracket. And once I get the OnePlus unit, I will do a side-by-side, so make sure to hit that follow button so you don't miss out. And if this video helps you, leave a comment, and it really means a lot to me. You know, I like to keep it real with you guys, so let's start with the flaws I found during my testing. First up is the transparency mode. We ran some tests using an artificial ear that's like the AEC3084 standards to get the transparency curve for the Air 5 Pro. Take a look at the graph. You can clearly see that at 100 Hz and again after 700 Hz, the ambient sound is being aggressively suppressed. The environmental sound only remains flat and natural within that narrow 100 Hz to 700 Hz window. What does that mean in the real world? It means that most of the world around you sounds like it's just being muffled or covered by a thick blanket. While the low-frequency ambient sound came through okay, the high frequencies, air, and clarity of the world are almost impossible to recover. If we pull up the industry benchmark, the AirPods Pro 3, for comparison, the gap is glaring. You can see the difference in the raw algorithm immediately. If you're someone who does high-intensity outdoor sports or needs to be hyper-aware of your surroundings, or if you're in an office and don't want to constantly take your buds out to hear what your boss or your colleague is saying, I really can't recommend this for that specific use case. So next, let's talk about the build. While the mold for this generation has been upgraded, the lid hinge feels great and the matte finish adds a nice touch of premium vibe. It is a magnet for strings. If you don't put a case on this thing immediately, you're going to regret it. I kid you not. Within 3 hours of unboxing, the surface of my case already had a permanent smudge that I couldn't wipe off. So if you're planning to pull the trigger on this, add a protective sleeve to your cart at the same time. So alright, if you're still with me after the cons, let's talk about the pros, because things are about to get interesting. First up, the noise cancellation. If you're looking for a pair of buds that makes you feel completely deaf to the world for under $50, well, that doesn't really exist yet. The earbuds in this price range are specialists. They target a specific frequency range to cancel out. The Air 5 Pro hits a peak depth of 45 dB and an average depth of 30 dB. These numbers absolutely smokes the previous Air 4 Pro. So looking at the data, the noise cancellation is concentrated heavily in the sub-700 Hz range, that is the low to mid frequencies. This tells us the Air 5 Pro is a beast at cutting out the subway-style drone and engine rumble. However, there is a catch. The effectiveness drops off between the 700 Hz and the 2.5 kHz. This means the Air 5 Pro struggles a bit when dealing with the human voices. In fact, its mid-frequency handling isn't quite as strong as the Ceramics Ultra I just reviewed. Compared to the Redmi Buds 8 Pro, however, the OPPO Air 5 Pro has a much wider coverage area and is overall more stable. And all this without significantly increasing ear pressure. And of course, if you compare it to its big brother, the Free 4, the Air 5 Pro is still playing in a lower league. And the high-frequency noise cancellation is surprisingly good. There is almost zero reverse noise, like the hissing, which shows the Air 5 Pro handles the random sharp sounds like the clicking or the keyboard or tapping very well. And you might think I'm being hard on this, but don't forget the Air 5 Pro's true superpower is the low frequency distraction. If you are a commuter taking the subway every day, these are more than enough. Combined with OPPO's intelligent ANC optimization, you're looking at a perceived reduction of about 95% of the subway rumble and maybe 40% of surrounding chatter. Moving on to the sound quality. On the practical side, we are looking at LHDC high-definition encoding, and compared with a massive 12mm dynamic driver, we used the KU100 to test the frequency response across the 3 built-in EQ modes. What we found is that the tuning philosophy for the Air 5 Pro is a mirror image of the Free 4. It is obsessed with atmosphere. There is a massive boost in the sub-100 Hz range. The deeper you go, the more gain there is. Personally, I think this sound signature is going to be a massive hit for everyone who loves a bit of the bass in their life. If it is too much for you, you can always flip it into the vocal mode. I've also dialed in a custom EQ that reels in the low end a bit for a more balanced and multi-genre experience. So subjectively, the soundstage on the Air 5 Pro is grand. The sense of the surround sound is huge, and the texture of the drum hits far exceeds what the Air 4 Pro could do. You get a decent amount of the instrument separation between the bass guitar and the kick drum, and the gap between this and the Free 4 is actually smaller than I expected. Even with the larger driver, the sound doesn't get sloppy. It stays tight and delivers that punch to the gut feeling. The only real downgrade is the sub-bass extension. It doesn't go quite as deep as the Free 4, so that feeling around the top of your brain isn't as immersive as the Free 4. The mid-range is warm and thick and delicate. The vocals are positioned perfectly, not too forward, not too resist, making them versatile for the different genres. However, because of that heavy bass boost, when the Air 5 Pro tries to tackle powerful, the piercing female vocals, the momentum of the tracks feel a bit less solid. The treble overtones from the strings are also slightly masked by the bass. But thankfully, instruments like the violin still retain their natural texture and grit. Overall, excellent is the right word for the tuning here. If they could just sharpen the transient response and instrument resolution a bit more, it could be unstoppable. And now, let's be real, the sound quality isn't OPPO's only strength, and neither is the ANC. OPPO's real ace in the hole is that the ecosystem. If you're an OPPO phone user, you can control every single feature of these buds directly from your Bluetooth settings, and it's seamless. But even if you aren't an OPPO user, the Humility app is here to show you what a smooth really feels like. The OPPO has also trickled down the delicate game mode to the Air 5 Pro. Even though we don't have the LC 3 support here, the combination of the LHDC and Bluetooth 6.0 is impressive. With game mode on, I measured the latency at just 98.3 milliseconds. On the non-OPPO phone, the total link latency stays around 130 milliseconds. When you toggle game mode, it also kicks in a gaming-specific EQ. I played a few rounds of the FPS games, and the footsteps were amplified significantly, while the overall environmental soundstage feels twice as wide. And beyond that, you get the full flagship suite, wear detection, Windows pairing notifications, and Find My Earbuds, fit testing, and even the earbuds cleaning and maintenance guide. Non-OPPO users get access to all of this. Compared to the approach of the Samsung that I recently criticized, the OPPO is staying true to its roots of actually caring about audio experience for everyone. So to wrap it all up, the OPPO earbuds are becoming the mark of the audio world. Whether it's taking flagship feature from the X3 and bringing them down to the entry level, or starting the price war with the Free 4, the OPPO is consistently at the front of the pack. They're different from Huawei or Apple because OPPO was the first to take true flagship level features and put them in a 50 and 60 box products. So if you're on the budget and you're currently using the old Air 4 Pro, this is a solid upgrade. Even though the mid-frequency noise cancellation is a bit lacking, there aren't actually many options in this price bracket that offer such a balanced mix of sound quality, ANC, and ecosystem integration. I will bring you the Oneplus Nord Buds 4 Pro review as soon as possible to give you a definitive comparison of the hottest 50 box buds on the market right now, since this one is much convenient to get. And that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I will see you in the next one. Good one, Jessie.